boutique in the capital sells Prada handbags and a 110-inch television for $115,000. A Ferrari shop has been opened nearby, and a luxury restaurant invites wealthy guests to sit atop a massive crane watching the city. We're not talking about Dubai or Tokyo, but Caracas, Venezuela's capital, where the socialist uprising originally vowed equality and the abolition of bourgeoisies. From being Latin America's wonder in the 1980s to the wreckage that it is now, there is much to find out regarding who or what is to blame for Venezuela's socio-economic disaster, because in Venezuela, it never rains, but it pours. Geography. Venezuela is a nation near South America's northernmost point. It covers a nearly triangular region, greater than Germany and France put together. Venezuela's borders are as follows: Guyana to the east, Brazil to the south, Colombia to the southwest and west, and the Caribbean Sea and the Atlantic Ocean to the north. The main hub of Venezuela's industry, business, education, and tourism is in Caracas, the country's capital. You won't get bored in Venezuela. Towering mountains, tropical rainforests, wide river plains, and dry coastal plains make up Venezuela's terrain, which present a variety of natural ecosystems as well as a number of obstacles to social cohesion and economic growth. The mountains that surround the Caribbean Sea are known as the highlands of Venezuela. The Andes mountain chain extends northeasterly to this range. The greatest peak in the nation, Pico Bolivar, has a snow-covered summit year-round. The majority of Venezuelans reside in the lowlands that are located between the mountains. The relatively level Maracaibo plains are encircled by mountains on all three sides. The region is dominated by Lake Maracaibo, which is well known for its oil deposits. Lucky Venezuela. The economy of Venezuela. Here is the lull before the storm. Petroleum extraction and exploitation are the backbone of the Venezuelan economy. The nation was the top exporter of petroleum in the globe from the late 1940s until 1970, and it has long been a major supplier of oil to the US. Since the 1940s onwards, Sembrando el Petróleo, or sowing the oil, has been made a national phrase in Venezuela since the country's economy has been reliant on the country's petroleum industry revenues to modernize and diversify other economic sectors. The economy was considerably enlarged by the exploitation of abundant quantities of coal, nickel, iron ore, and bauxite, or aluminium ore, in addition to hydroelectric power. They must be happy as Larry. However, due to changes in the price of petroleum internationally, like a bolt from the blue, the world economic downturns of the 1980s and 1990s, as well as internal issues like inflation, ineffective management, corruption, and a shortage of trained workers, Venezuela's sowing the oil was halted. Huge foreign debt, high unemployment, fast population growth, and illegal immigration put strain on the economy. Nonetheless, the economy rebounded sufficiently in the beginning of the 21st century that the nation's foreign debt was reimbursed by 2007. Finally some hope? Not really. The Venezuelan economy is like the New York stock market. It can rise to new heights, but it can also fade away in an instant. The Venezuelan economy started to collapse in 2014, when global oil prices crashed. Between 2014 and 2019, the country's GDP fell by around 75%. I mean, look at their economy. Unstable as hell. The situation was made harsher by Chavez's and Maduro's successors' more authoritarian policies, which led to economic penalties from the US and other Western democracies. As a consequence, there were severe food and medication shortages, which exacerbated Venezuela's humanitarian catastrophe when the coronavirus worldwide pandemic struck the nation in 2020. Why is reliance on oil a problem for Venezuela? 25% of Venezuela's GDP and 95% of its exports are made up of oil, so the country's economy benefits from rising oil prices. With the exception of a temporary decline in late 2008 during a worldwide crisis, oil prices primarily ranged between $100 and $125 per barrel from 2006 until the first half of 2014. Venezuela utilized the money it received from the skyrocketing cost of oil as the opportunity to control politics and finance its budget. Making money isn't bad, just not inspiring. With the oil price slump towards the end of 2014, the oil giveaway program started to become somewhat of an inconvenience than a benefit for the Venezuelan economy. Venezuela was exporting less oil for revenue than it had produced because it had been giving away more than 200,000 barrels per day, half of which went to Cuba. Venezuela made sufficient money from oil exports while prices were above $100, enough that the decline in volume didn't negatively impact the country's economy. The nation's margins were pushed to a case that they could not cover its expenditure when oil fell sharply below that price point, which led to skyrocketing debt. Love of money is the root of all evil, like an anxious bird that must be managed. Early in 2015, Nicolas Maduro, the president of Venezuela, set out on a global trip to beg other countries with significant power over the oil market to take action to raise the price back to $100 or more. This was in response to the country's collapsing economy, which had caused Maduro to face record low support ratings. The drastic measures taken by Maduro demonstrate how oil dominates the Venezuelan economy. Inflation in Venezuela is skyrocketing. Imagine going to the store and seeing that everything lacks price tags. Rather, you bring it to the cashier who will figure out the cost. You might have to pay twice the price or even more than you did an hour before, if anything is still in stock, that is. The present political crisis in Venezuela is rooted in this fiscal reality, even though the problem has really been there for years. In 2016, the Nicolas Maduro-led administration, which has ruled Venezuela since 2013, proclaimed a state of emergency. Inflation reached 800% in that particular year. Since then, the situation has become worse. In Venezuela, inflation is like a magic trick. Prices disappear from your wallet faster than you can say abracadabra. Moreover, the COVID-19 pandemic in Venezuela is spreading amid a dire economic downturn. Since 2014, the GDP has been continuously declining. Less than 1 million barrels of oil were produced daily in 2019 compared to 3.26 million barrels per day in the previous year. The situation has gotten worse due to the large budget deficit, the higher rate of inflation, which hit hyperinflation levels in 2018, and the sovereign default that began in late 2017. The lack of financial room to implement countermeasures to COVID-19's impact on public health and the economy highlights the importance of outside funding and the changing nature of oil earnings. Corruption, institutions, and poverty. A functioning government's primary goals, including the distribution of resources, stability of the economy, and redistribution of income, are hampered by corruption. These goals have an immediate and indirect impact on poverty. Additionally, there is a reciprocal relationship between poverty and corruption. Poverty attracts corruption, while corruption intensifies poverty. Not just does corruption contribute to poverty, it thrives there. Political, economic, and social structures that are weak make it simple to take advantage of these systems. Actually, the economy of Venezuela is a true paradox. We have people living in slums and billionaires living in palaces, all within the same city. Venezuela is presently ruled by Nicolas Maduro, who runs a corrupt regime that has disrupted tranquility. Venezuela's president does not have popular support, and neighboring nations, including the United States, do not recognize him as president. Maduro has generated terror among Venezuelans via mass imprisonment and corruption, allowing him to continue governing the country. During Maduro's 10-year leadership, the country has experienced its greatest economic downturn. To alleviate the economic crisis, Maduro imposed price restrictions, resulting in a decrease in accessible products and an increase in poverty in Venezuela. At that time, the standard living of the Venezuelan population was plummeting as quickly as a dog can lick a dish. The effects of corruption are evident anywhere in Venezuela and have been there for a long time, thanks to a number of different governments. A state-owned corporation that imported powdered milk was found to be illicitly importing it into Colombia, despite a more than 90% deficit of the product throughout the country, according to one inquiry. The army and customs officials of Venezuela and Colombia participated in smuggling operations. The government in Venezuela conduct business over everything. They believe in Chinomics, which refers to the practice of conducting business over a cup of tea. Poverty all over the place. Venezuela has been nothing but a socio-economic disaster in recent years. The ludicrous hyperinflation of the Venezuelan currency has thrown the economy into disarray, and the government has done little to help. Vladimir Lenin once said, "The best way to ruin a country is to debauch its currency." We should agree now. As a result, the country's social infrastructure has deteriorated. Looking for something to eat has become the most pressing issue that Venezuelans must address. There is no time for recreation or growth. Insecurity has also increased as criminals determine that stealing someone a little less starving than them is the answer to their problems. The Venezuelan economy is like a game of Monopoly. A few players have all the properties, and the rest of us are just trying to survive. Good luck. Under Nicolas Maduro's direction, Venezuela's administration has come under increasing criticism. The 2019 to 2020 National Survey of Living Conditions (ENCOVI) released studies illustrating how the job market, education, and basic infrastructure have declined since 2014. In the exact same year when ENCOVI claimed that a startling 96% of the population fell below the poverty line, the United Nations projected that 25% of the whole population, or nearly 7 million Venezuelans, were in desperate need of humanitarian aid. The number of people without dependable power is estimated to be 90% of the population, and supply of both water and electricity is continuously decreasing. Feels like due to economic cutbacks, the light at the end of the tunnel has been turned off. Under Maduro's leadership, the rate of unemployment has surged, forcing many people who formerly worked in the official sector to look for other means of income. This has been linked to a steep rise in poverty in the country. Additionally, the number of children attending school in the country has decreased from 12.7 million to 11 million. This is because children from low-income households frequently choose to work rather than attend school, which perpetuates the cycle of poverty. How is that done? I mean, Maduro acts like a young graduate who is so desperate for a job and accepts a position as an interpreter, but can't actually speak the native language. Following the COVID-19 virus, food insecurity in Venezuela worsened considerably. In 2021, 88.2% of Venezuelan households were concerned about a lack of food. Citizens have no way to buy basic essentials as the country attempts to rebound from the economic downturn caused by the worldwide pandemic. Individuals are finding it difficult to overcome growing poverty rates due to inflation and a lack of suitable jobs. The economy of Venezuela is like a traffic jam. It's chaotic, frustrating, but somehow trying to manage it. Venezuela's economy is showing indications of revival after a decade of economic disaster. Circumstances for a large segment of the people remain dismal, and while the hyperinflation that wrecked the economy has subsided, prices continue to treble yearly, one of the most severe trends in the history of mankind. However, with the government's relaxation of limitations on the use of US dollars in dealing with Venezuela's economic catastrophe, corporate engagement has begun to come back as to what was previously the region's richest country. Thanks for watching till the end. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit the like and subscribe buttons to receive more content. See you in the next video.